everybody, and welcome back to the Bird and Goal podcast. Bird and Goal from the week two. My name is Jackie, one of your co hosts here, joined by my other lovely co hosts. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
What is up, everybody? This is Colby. We are back again. Talk more Cardinal football. Let's go.
Yeah, and now you can see Colby's face. He's a real boy. Look at
I
him
do
go.
exist. I do exist. I am not AI.
Yeah, he's not AI, and we are also in our new rivalry merch. So I got the sweater here, very comfortable. Looking forward to wearing this in the fall, especially when we hit the road and go to Dallas. And then you got your hat, as well as no, you can't see it in the background, but you got the little helmet there.
Oh yeah, it's back over my shoulder, but yeah, it looks even better in person. We swung by the team shop when me and Dad got to the stadium Sunday, and I was like, I got to see it with my own eyes because of all the media that they've posted about it. But it looks nice. I will say it looks nice and crisp in person. I'm excited to see it on the field.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think at some point we will probably have to get the jerseys. But let's go ahead and talk about a win. We are now 2-0, first time being undefeated and going into the season since what, 2022?
Yeah, 22 or 21, I think. It's been a
Yeah.
minute.
Yep. So we got the big. We snuck away with a win there, 27-22 against the Carolina Panthers. Kind of got the monkey off our back a little bit, but I think the general consensus of this game was, yeah, we won, but at what cost?
Yeah, no, and minus the injuries in the secondary, they definitely held on. It was not a very convincing win, even though it started opposite. Definitely felt like with how the defense got going and the fumble recovery and for the touchdown, thought that would have kind of steamrolled into a pretty lopsided blowout. But um, hopefully, we got good news today from Monty, and not Monty from JG. So hopefully, these boys get healthy here in a couple weeks, and we'll be okay.
Yeah, since you touched on it, we'll go ahead and address it. I know we were probably trying to save it for the halfway point there, but yes, unfortunately, Will Johnson, Garrett Williams, and Max Melton did go down in this game, and we all kind of were just expecting the worst. We're Cardinals fans, so we are a little on the pessimistic side. But luckily, no season ending for anybody. It was interesting because Darren Urban did tweet out initially that LJ Collier, who was also hurt as well, and Garrett Wilson were probably going to be done for the year. But I'm sorry, Garrett Williams. I always get that wrong. But initially tweeted that Williams was going to be done for the year, but then he edited, said that JG has said that there's a possibility for both of them to return later in the year, which kind of makes me feel like if they are going to return at some point, we're probably looking towards December if we make it to January, that time frame.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know that we've not been filled in yet on the severity or what the injuries are. Well, obviously, we know Will Johnson was a groin, and those soft tissue ones are always tricky. Like that, he may play with that for the rest of the year and never be fully healthy. But you don't want it to compound into something worse, and we may never see him be what he's been the first 2 weeks, week and a half. I'm not sure when Will. Well, no, he got hurt near the end of the game, so
Yeah, it did come out that he did actually play a couple drives after the initial injury, so he kind of pushed through to the end. Um, but best case scenario for Will Johnson, it wasn't a knee. Everybody was concerned, pre-draft was about his knee. So, luckily it wasn't anything like that. I was really concerned about Max Melton. It was a kind of weird injury. I was explaining it to you because you were at the game. You didn't really get to see the replay. But when he went to go make the tackle on T Mac, he kind of landed like right on the knee hard. Like that was the first point of contact on the ground was that knee. So it was a good thing that I don't think anything was pulled. But yeah, I don't know the extent of Garrett Williams' injury, but luckily he's not a total loss for the year. But you were at the game. What was the atmosphere like for being the home opener?
yeah, it was loud. It was not a full house. There were definitely some empty seats up in the upper deck, even a couple scattered around the lower bowl. But it was loud. It was exciting. Big roars for Calais Campbell during player introductions. It was glad to see everyone was big excited to see 93 back. Um, and man, he was back and made a statement with the end of that game for sure. Um, I was excited. Then it kind of slipped back into same old Cardinals, and you were like, "Uh oh, I didn't sign up for this. I'm no longer having fun. I'd like to get off the ride." But yeah, I think overall it was an okay spot. Energy wise, crowd wasn't the biggest, as you know, it wasn't a full house. But week two, we'll keep it rolling. The Panthers don't really bring in a big crowd. No one's really kind of excited to go beat the Panthers.
Now, did you get loud at all? I heard some stories from people that were actually at the game, and that last drive to seal it. Everybody was getting real loud, for the defense.
Yeah, you know, I do a little bit of screaming, not crazy. I didn't lose my voice Monday morning. I wasn't struggling to find my voice Monday. I'll save it for the Thursday night game. Maybe they flex us later in the year to a little prime time game when we're fighting for the playoffs. But no, not too going crazy for week two against the Panthers.
Okay, that's fair. I see it. Had it been me, I would be going nuts, especially after that sack to finally seal the game away. Real quick, I do want to give some shout outs in the chat. What's going on, Silver Wolf AZ? He said everyone with their fancy fits. Well, thank you. Yes, I was overdue for some new merch. Um, the Saltiest Gaming, what's up? How's your evening going? Thank you for being here with us. And of course, our Papa Joe is in the chat as well. So we appreciate that. And he is, behind the scenes helping us out too. Um, but yeah, everyone's going to say a win's a win, but unfortunately, just kind of the way everything went this game, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. There was some good things that we saw early on in the game. Defense got us rolling with a big sack on Bryce to cause him to scoop and score. Shout out Zaven Collins on that, and then Josh Sweat too for bringing the pressure early on. And then offense took a little bit of time. They started out a little slow, and then things were rolling until they weren't rolling.
Yeah, they definitely hit a wall. They had a couple of good drives. You know, we had the before the mad dash there before halftime. They had the nice 10 play drive and ended in a field goal there. But to get a field goal before half was nice, and they carried that momentum into the second half. Touchdown drive there, and I was like, well, kind of rolling. It felt nice there. It almost looked like we were a real offense for a hot second, and then the clock struck midnight, and it turned back into a pumpkin. And now we're over here saying you got to get Marv 12 targets a game. You got to throw the ball 45 times a game. Drew's got to be the first one in the limo to get sent out of town. And if we had lost, I don't know if I would have enjoyed being on Twitter and being around Cardinal spaces if we had lost that game. Like we were this upset in a win, I could not imagine what it would look like in a loss.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to say hello to Dana. She said she can't stay for long, but she says have a great show. We appreciate you, Dana. Thanks for stopping in. Um, yeah, it's funny because after that game, it was very doom and gloom on my end. Um, and I think a lot of it just really had to do with the uncertainty of the injury because, your three starting corners go down and two of them, for sure is a knee. That's not a good sign. And it's like, well, next man up, which we saw in game, Max went down, pretty early on in the game. And then Denzel Burke had to come in and, really had to be baptized by fire. And yeah, he got burned a couple times. He did make some plays, but it's not ideal to just thrust a rookie out there, especially a rookie that wasn't drafted to be like a day one starter. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um,
You also got to look at it too. It's not just we lost our top three corners because we've already gone into the year losing Sean Murphy Bunting and Star Thomas. So we're down our five starting corners, or our first five corners. So it's not so much of like next man up as like that's the room. Like the last guy is Keitrell Clark and Denzel Burke, and they had Elijah Jones was inactive Sunday, but that's kind of it. It is. I've mentioned it a couple times, but it's the Will Smith meme. Like the room is kind of empty now, and we went from like, oh yeah, a good couple of veteran leaders and a bunch of young kids, and then it's just a bunch of young kids, and now it's whoever is left. So hopefully we get some news here, and the Max and Will, and hopefully Mr. Williams can all come back pretty soon. If not, in, like you said, December for GW.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter that that Max Melton was a full practice, so that's good. I feel confident, optimistic more, so that he'll start on Sunday. Will Johnson did not practice, so I would imagine maybe we won't see him this week. Hopefully by it's going to be a quick turnaround because we do play Seattle on Thursday night, so we'll see if he's a good to go for them. Um, but we did elevate Derek Hall. Is that his name, Derek Hall?
Darren Hall.
Aaron Hall. I'm sorry. We did elevate him from the practice squad, so he's now on the active roster. So that's going to have some depth there. And did we also bring someone up from the practice squad for?
They signed another corner to the practice squad, and I don't recall his name.
I thought we got another defensive tackle since LJ's gone, but I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if they put him on the practice squad or if they signed him to the active roster.
Yeah, not quite sure with that one. But we'll go ahead and we'll just kind of get into some PFF grades here. One moment while I toggle this. You want to start offense or defense?
Let's go with the offense.
Okay, dokie. Let's see. All right, so these are your highest graded PFF offensive players with Elijah Higgins at number one with a grade of 90.4. I had tweeted out, I really like Elijah Higgins, and I've even said, I can't remember if it's on this podcast or if on my other podcast, Redbird Red Zone. In a world, if Trey McBride didn't exist, Elijah Higgins would be a solid, tight end one.
Yeah.
Um, he had a solid game, not a whole lot of targets, but did the most of what he did. And then number two, Mr. Controversy himself, Kyler Murray, with a PFF grade of 81.4. Kyler had a really solid game. There was a lot of big plays downfield that he made. He had that crazy scramble. It ended up being like a total of like 82 yards, I believe. And then right after that, the duality of Kyler Murray, unfortunately, he does turn the ball over. That completely shifted the momentum and almost potentially cost us the game. What did you think about Kyler's performance?
Yeah, no, I thought, and unfortunately, it was a good performance all the way up to there. And like you said, you addressed, he looked good in the passing game. Whatever they fixed there, that drive before halftime, and then to start the second half, they keyed on something, and they were working these drags and these crossing routes underneath. And we were moving the ball, and it looked pretty good. He had the big run, the big scramble, which ended up right in front of us. So that was exciting to watch. And then he's trying to make something happen, and he gets his arm hit on the interception. And yeah, it's the Kyler Murray experience, and you can't be like, oh well, he'll grow out of that. Like, unfortunately, it's year 7, so like this is Kyler Murray. There's no more. Oh yeah, just give it some year, let him get comfortable with the league, let it slow down. Like this is Kyler Murray. This is what he's gonna do. So you would have liked to get points there. You were already in field goal range, so like at worst, you go up 30-3, and maybe Carolina kind of packs in a little bit more, or the outcome's different, but it ended up being a 10-point swing. They went down and scored a touchdown on that drive and kind of shifted the momentum. And at the end of the day, that's all the game of football is momentum. And it's unfortunate because he played a solid game, but then that opened the door for the Panthers to make it much more of a tighter game, nail biter, if you will, than it needed to be.
Yeah, and it was real reminiscent of the last time we played the Panthers. You come out and you're pretty much in control most of the game, and then it all kinds of fall apart, and it starts with those turnovers, and it's just whatever Kyler needs to do to just fix that mental disconnect of I need to do too much here and I'm going to make a bad decision. If we can, it's just at this point, it's all mental with him. It's not like he doesn't have the talent or the athleticism to be good. It's just all the little mistakes, and unfortunately, the little mistakes can really shift the momentum of the game. But luckily, and we talked about this last week, and it still holds true to this week, is the difference in these games. Yeah, offense is essentially looking like it did last week or last year, but now you have a good defense, a good pass rush that can actually close out the game. And on the coaching side of it, it's like JG and Petzing need to figure out how to close out these games. Don't settle for neutrals. Keep stepping on the gas.
Yeah,
Um, and defensively too. There is an interesting tweet that Kent Summers had put out that says Panthers needing to score multiple times. JG is content to rush four and tackle and let them take 6 to 8 minutes off the clock. Frustrating to watch, but it makes sense. That's like that's not an ideal way to close out a game. It's just, hey, let's just give them all these chunk plays and let them score,
yeah.
because then you somehow manage to recover an onside kick, and now it's like, oh crap.
Yeah, and you're doing that in kind of the thought of, well, our offense is still going to move the ball and get field goals. So like, yeah, trading 7 for 3s isn't good, but if you're giving up those underneath routes and everything in front of you short, and they are taking those 6 7 minute drives, you are going to end up with, you know, what they score a touchdown, you go down, kick a field goal. Cool, it's 33-10, but it was a 7 minute drive by them and a 5.5 minute drive by us. That's 12 minutes. There's 3 minutes left in the quarter, so there's not enough possessions if you're evening the points. The issue with where that becomes a problem is when your offense is going three and out or turning the ball over or not recovering onside kicks. Now they are eating all the clock and they're closing the gap, and it's like, well, shoot, if they score here, we don't have any time to go answer, and it almost bit them. So it definitely is scary. I will also agree with what you were saying about Kyler, and maybe it is, old habits die hard, and maybe he is still in that mindset of I've got to push and I've got to make those plays because in the past he's not had a good defense. So maybe he's still got to get accustomed to believing the defense is going to actually get a stop, and maybe here in a couple of weeks he'll look a lot more comfortable. Maybe we will see him throw the ball away or just eat sacks and live to fight another down.
Yeah, just settle in. You don't have to be Superman all the time. The just when you're up like that, you just got to game manage, and yeah, you could take a sack there, and you're kicking a 42-yard field goal. Um, but just going back to, I'm looking at these PFF grades for the offense here. Michael Wilson had a solid game. He had a touchdown that was called back, and then got his touchdown later on in the game, which was really nice dart by Kyler. Just a perfect strike over the middle.
Yeah.
Trey McBride still hasn't found the end zone yet, but still was our leading receiver this week, which brings me, because he is not on here. So let me throw up the other graphic. There he is, Marvin Harrison Jr., our first round pick last year, number 4 overall, with a PF grade of, I can't see, 56.2.
Yeah. Uh, Matches the eye test, right? We're not happy with the amount of targets. You saw the drop uh, early in the game, and it almost looks like Kyler kind of can't count on him. So maybe it's that's also a factor. I'm not sure, and I know the offenses are set up a little bit differently. So a lot of talk this week was, well, look at what Malik Neighbors is doing. It's like, well, go ahead and find me a James Conner and a Trey McBride on the Giants offense, and then
That is the Giants offense. And as much as we love the local kid Cam Scattaboo, he's getting stuffed at the line every time they run the ball. So yeah, that offense has to move through Malik Neighbors. But yeah, what was it? 5 targets for 2 catches. And I just seeing the fade in the end zone. You're a big guy. The offseason headline was, you put on a lot of weight and it's muscle. And I hate to make this comparison, but just hear me out, everybody. It almost reminds me of like the DeAndre Ayton situation with the Suns, where you've got this big guy, and I think you need to remind him that he is a big guy, and he's got to go out there and he's got to dominate because he's got the physique for it. And it's just, we haven't seen it yet. There was also a pass that kind of hit him in the hands, so it's like, you're not proving yourself to warrant all, wanting more targets, because when we do target you, you're not doing much with the opportunity.
Yeah, and it's also not like it's not a Chad Williams case where like he came from Grambling State or a small school like John Brown. Like he came from Ohio State. He played against NFL corners. He wasn't beaten up on William and Mary or small schools. So to see the concerns of not high pointing the ball and having that the earlier pass just hit him in the hands and bounce off his helmet. It's frustrating to watch, especially because the whole draft process, not even for that year, but for the whole 2 years of him being close to the NFL, it was how he was a generational talent. And I don't know how many generational talents are not being able to high point a ball in the end zone.
Yeah, it's just frustrating, and I know to give him some grace, we're not really an offense that is really scheming for the big, pass plays. And when we are, they're mostly going to, towards McBride. And I don't have a lot of confidence in Drew Petzing as a guy that can scheme up, a good passing attack. But who knows? It's still early in the season. We'll give it time. Marv, Kyler, JG, Petzing, they all seem to not think that it's as big of a deal as we make it out to be. And you figure that you're playing Carolina, you're playing New Orleans, two teams that you should absolutely beat. So you could probably roll out your most vanilla plays because this is going to be a cakewalk, which you know proved to not be. But maybe you want to get more creative when you're going up against your divisional opponents. You have San Francisco next week in Seattle. You don't want to put anything on tape now that you're going to want to use in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, that's a fair call out. I think also what the issue is with the passing game is the lack of our run game. And I know you already mentioned our two opponents, and those were two teams that weren't supposed to be good, as well as we probably could have had our way on the ground or should have had our way on the ground against those teams. Like, for example, Carolina, they had 7 straight games where they had given up 200 rushing yards. Do you want to know how many yards they gave up to us on the ground? Not much. We had 82 rushing yards against the Panthers for a team that has averaged giving up at least 200 yards rushing over their last 7 games. So it's definitely frustrating. And I know I tweeted about it earlier in the week, just kind of highlighting the struggles compared to last year when this offense was running the ball. And, this year we're averaging 3.6 yards a carry, which is 25th in the league. And we're only averaging 88 yards per game, and that's 23rd in the league, and that's not going to help open the offense up for more passing. It's going to let these teams not load the box and not have to account for James Conner or Trey Benson, and like last year they over 5.3 yards a carry, they were second in the NFL and 144 yards per game, seventh in the league. It's like that was a good rushing attack that maybe if we had that kind of success in the ground game to start the season, maybe the numbers in the pass game would look a little bit better than they have the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I do also want to point out as well, you were talking about our rushing yards last week. Half of those was Kyler Murray. And I can only recall maybe like a one or two design runs for him, and the rest were just, scrambles.
Yeah.
So it's not purposeful what we're doing there with, or what we did there last week. Real quick, just want to say hello to Classy Nasty. Lorenzo says Drew is not scheming plays for him, which I agree. And I didn't mention it on this podcast, because we're new. But in my previous my other podcast, Redbird Red Zone, I talked about, especially, year one rookie Marvin, you got to just give him little chunk plays, nothing crazy, none enough of the go routes and these back shoulder fades, just give him some layup, just layups to get him warm, because I feel like that's what you have to do with Marv. You got to get him, going early and often for him to have that confidence and to have a solid game. Soul Pancakes, hey guys, Dana and I appreciate everything you do. We appreciate you as well. I hope you guys had a good show, you and Blake there. But yeah, it's just not playoff football that we're seeing right now with this offense. Things have got to change, but I feel like, maybe it's just they just want us to be patient. Maybe, they're going to open it up a little bit now that we're going up against better teams. But we'll go ahead and we'll shift gears to our defense because that sealed the game for us. So there's your defensive PFF grades with Keitrell Clark, the savior. Keitrell Clark, 79.6 defensive grade. I was really, I'm actually a little happy for Keitrell Clark. Obviously, I'm not happy that, these injuries have occurred. But I'm happy that Keitrell Clark is getting a chance to prove himself. He was kind of like an odd man out for the last couple seasons.
Yeah.
He was playing a lot near his rookie season and then kind of fell out of the good graces. We didn't really see a whole lot of him last year. Didn't I honestly didn't think he was going to make the team, but he came in and he played solid for the few reps that he had. Zaven Collins, heck of a game with that fumble recovery for a touchdown. Um, of course, got you. This is my Unk still got it player of the week, Calais Campbell. His first homecoming as an Arizona Cardinal since he left. PFF grade of 77. And then he had that game sealing sack at the end, and he had a couple other of sacks in the game, I believe.
Yeah, he did finish the game with two, and a note that they did tweet out is he did pass Chandler Jones for most sacks in State Farm Stadium history. So he flew past Chandler Jones. Now he's got 30 and a half sacks at the farm. It was exciting to see Calais back for sure. The crowd was, feeding off the energy. I think he was feeding off the energy. I even saw he was mic'd up, so I'm sure that's probably worth a listen for sure. Man, I'm excited Calais is back, and he still is producing. He's still. It's not like a final hurrah victory tour, farewell tour, if you will, and one last ride. He's a good player, and he's going to contribute to this defense.
Yes, it very much doesn't feel like what it's felt in years past when we've gotten these older defensive players that you just feel like you're giving them a home to retire.
Mhm.
It feels more productive. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's like when JJ Watt was here, it's like, okay, cool, JJ Watt, but he's got an injury history and everybody likes to retire in Arizona. So yeah, like we'll be his one last hurrah before he hangs him up. Or even like a Terrell, that's what Terrell Suggs felt to me. But it doesn't feel like that with Calais. And you think that, given Calais his age, you wouldn't have to rely on him too much. He would just take a little bit of snaps and he's just kind of here for morale and to coach up the next generation. But, he proved to be very vital in this win. And I feel like until others step up on that line, he's still going to be the top dog. But Josh Sweat, that was a hell of a signing by us. He really brings the pressure on that line and he's a force to be reckoned with himself. But another name that I personally like that we brought in and we talked about it last week was Baron Browning, man. That guy is solid.
Yeah, Barron's everywhere. It's exciting too because definitely when the trade happened, I was excited because of his pressure rate. Even though his snap count wasn't high, but his pressure rate was one of the top in the league through since he had entered the league, and it was frustrating that he wasn't healthy to kind of keep his spot in Denver. But for Monty to get him for I believe it was a fifth round pick, and then re-signed him for what 2 years, $15 million. Like that's an impactful player. He has as many pressures as Micah Parsons on the season. He's got a better pass rush win rate for edge players than Max Crosby. Like Baron Browning is a solid NFL player, and he's kind of made all of us forget about BJ Olajari. Don't know when he's going to see the field. Don't really. It's not very high on my care right now.
Yeah. So Calvin just tuned in and or said, "Did you guys already cover CB injuries, concerns?" We did go over the injuries a little bit, what the timetable is going to look like. We can get into concerns. We are going up against a divisional opponent this week. Um, So it's going to be real interesting to see what Keitrell, Denzel Burke, and Elijah Jones do for us on Sunday. But I think Gannon and Rallis do a really good job of kind of scheming around, what they know what the talent level is, and they can kind of scheme to kind of cover up some of those shortcomings. So I expect, Sunday we're going to see a lot more pressure with our front seven just to kind of help out the back half of the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the team definitely, this defense definitely struggled with getting pressure with four. So that'll be a big key Sunday against the 49ers is, helping out the back end for sure.
Yeah, and Rallis has done a really good job of how to scheme things, and then JG, given his DB history, he's done a really good job with these younger guys, getting them ready and getting them prepared. So it sounds scary, and it's not the ideal squad you want to roll out against a divisional opponent, but at the same time, these guys played a really good preseason, and they're essentially kind of going up against preseason receivers in San Francisco because they have a lot of injuries as well.
Yeah.
Um,
We don't have, and like you said, we're not rolling out our best corners, but they're also not rolling out their best pass catchers. Ayuk is still hurt, and they traded Debo, and Kittle's hurt. So we're not dealing with the big guns anymore this time around, for sure.
Yeah. And then let's just go ahead. I'm going to get into the bottom half of the defense as far as the PFF grades go. Dalvin Tomlinson, 58.4. Jalen Thompson, which is surprising to me. I thought he played a pretty solid game, was at a 56.5. Mac Wilson did have a couple of good plays, but also that onside kick did touch him, so that didn't help us. Buda Baker, interestingly, is also down here as well, the 48.6. But I think that what the real telling thing right now is Darius Robinson, 40.7, and he has been missing in action for these first 2 weeks. And I know there's a lot of buzz on Twitter about, okay, maybe this guy's a bust, but you said in our group chat, it's been 8 games. Let's just pump the brakes on the whole bust conversation. What do you think
Yeah, I'm
about
not ready to
Darius?
bury Darius Robinson yet. I did say in the group chat he's played 8 games. 6 last year. He was dealing with some personal stuff as well as an injury, and then I came back from the injury and got hurt again. Um, I think he's still definitely trying to find his way. It's not looked good yet. So it's not like I don't even think there's like a one shining moment play where you can be like, at least we have that to kind of go on and be like, hopefully he can turn that into a more common occurrence. Um, but yeah, there's definitely some loud rumblings now about Darius Robinson, and I think it's kind of unfair. It's only 8 games. I get it if maybe he played all of last year and then he comes into the start of this season and he's kind of been a ghost. Then I would emphasize, I would echo that as well, because now you're looking at what 18, 19 career starts. Like that's much more of a sample size than say 8 games, and suddenly, oh, he's a bust.
Yeah, let's give it to at least the half point of the season, and if he's really missing on the stat sheet, then it'd be cause for concern. But yeah, he did unfortunately have a huge life event, which I can relate to as well. Of maybe you're just not there last season and you're just kind of getting caught up to speed. So, who knows? Maybe he'll get his toe, start to get his toes wet a little bit and then, progress. I know we were kind of out on it's like Zaven, we were kind of out on him in the first couple of years of his career, and then he kind of blossomed. And, he's not the pro bowler, but, he still proved to be efficient.
Yeah, and I wonder too if this isn't the role they have in mind for him, because you do have Justin Jones who's hurt, you do have Nichols who's hurt, you have Walter Nolan who is hurt. You just lost LJ Collier. Like these are interior defensive linemen, and maybe D Rob is playing a little bit out of position right now because of the injuries in the room. And once a Walter Nolan or a Justin Jones comes back, you may see him switch into, Morales may move him into a different role and he may have success there.
Yeah, that is a very good point. Lorenzo says, I heard someone call this game the hospital bowl. I think I called it. I called it something, but it was like, yeah, like the IR bowl or something like that. Or no, I called it the backup bowl. That's what I called it. So it's going to be an interesting matchup this week. I want to get it. Let me get into Soul Pancakes comment real quick. Can't probably evaluate Darius unless we have 8 games of film on him. If he can't pan out as a 5 tech, Darius may have to end up being on the edge, defender, lineup, and 4 point stance.
Yeah, I think that echoes what I was just saying. Like he might not be in a natural position for him, and he might be a little undersized as well. Where like you slide him out, and he may find more success there. But right now, the defensive ends and the outside linebackers that room is kind of almost healthy. To weirdly say it, I know we don't have BJ, and I think we'll see in a couple of weeks. You know, maybe in like week 8 when those defensive linemen when the big boys come back and we can slide him out and maybe with the little Walter Nolan and Dalvin Tomlinson in the middle now him and Calais are finding more success outside.
Yeah, time will tell. This is only a sample size. We're still in week 2, so we'll just give him the benefit of the doubt for now. But moving on, I want to get into our matchup with San Francisco
Mhm.
because I felt like, okay, week 1 and 2, you're playing Carolina, you're playing the Saints. These are the teams that you should beat, and you did beat, just not in a very convincing fashion. Now you're going up against a divisional opponent, which I don't care. I don't care how hurt San Francisco is. I don't care if we were fully healthy. These divisional matchups are not a give me. They never will be a give me. As much as we all came into the season and thought San Francisco was not going to be any good, they're still winning games. So I feel like this is going to be a real, kind of pre-test to see where we're at because I feel like you don't really know what a team is until about Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
The Papa Bruce Arians said that, and I've always, that's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
So this is going to be interesting. This is going to see if we can really contend, if we are, a serious team, or we're just, not playing up to where we should be, or, because on paper, this should be a better team than the way we've closed out these games.
Yeah, and like you said, the quality of opponent that we played the first couple of weeks, the expectation from the fans was to go 2-0.
Right.
And Cardinal teams in the past have not gone 2-0 through those games. We've gone 1-1, or God forbid you lose both of those games, and now everyone, now the sky is falling. The team's awful. Now you got to go play San Francisco on the road. You're going to be 0-3. Then then you start rumblings of who do we fire, what quarterback we going to get next year. So to start 2-0 kind of calms the waters a little bit, and now you get into these 2 division games, which the short week is going to be impactful. It's going to impact this team after the game as well because you're not going to come out of this game healthy. These guys are going to be beat up. It's a division game. These are 2 tough teams, and in 4 days after, you have the Seahawks who come to town, and we know our history with them as well. So, getting through this game healthy is going to be just as important as the final result of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are, as fans of this team, because we know this team has burned us a million times over. We are the biggest critic. So yeah, like we have these really high expectations coming into this year. But if you kind of take a step back and kind of listen to what like, casual NFL fans and just like the national media, just what their thoughts on this game this past weekend, it's like, yeah, the Cardinals, you know, they should have won. They did won. Kyler Murray played great. Yeah, he had a boneheaded interception, but doesn't matter when the team wins. And it was more just criticisms of how bad the Panthers are and how bad Bryce Young is. Which it's nice that Bryce Young is starting to get more of the short quarterback hate than Kyler. So that's good to see.
That's funny. Yeah, no,
Real quick, can I read this to you?
sure.
AZJ says, Colby, you look like Limit Max, hoping you know who that is.
That's
Going off comments I've seen you make on X.
that's so funny. I appreciate that, dude. I do enjoy watching the race world first, so I love or not that, but fun stuff. I appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. I always enjoy interacting with you for sure on X. So thank
I
you.
believe he's in Australia. Are you in Australia, Jace? I know you're not in the States, that's for sure. So whatever time it is, good morning, good night. Thank you for being here. But yeah, like we said, it doesn't matter that what the records are. Both San Francisco and us are going in at 2-0. We're gonna see who the real fraudulent 2-0 team is gonna be this week.
Yeah, suddenly beating the Panthers and Saints, those aren't good wins. But when the 49ers beat the Saints, it's okay. That's an okay win. Um, I think the defense for San Fran is going to be what they have been in the past. This is a good run defense right now. They're not giving up a lot of rush yards. They're holding their opponents to what is this? Just 102 yards per game, but just a 3.7 average. So hopefully, maybe we knock the rust off of JC and he gets rolling because that's going to help this offense out. And I don't know if we're going to get Purdy or if we're going to get Mac Jones. I know Shanahan talked about it a little bit today that he might be able to go, and I hope that whichever quarterback we get, we can kind of get on top of them again, like we did against the Carolina Panthers last week, and kind of dictate the game. Because I'd rather play from a two-score lead against Christian McCaffrey than play from two-score trailing against Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey is always gonna be the X factor for this 49ers team, no matter who they roll out as quarterback. And it's the Shanahan system. You and I can play quarterback under Kyle Shanahan and put up some solid numbers. The passing game, Mac Jones had a big passing day last week against the Saints. But they did. The score was closer than I thought when I looked. We were talking pre-show. I didn't realize that they only won by 5 points. But we have to get this running game going because it's been non-existent for these past couple weeks. Hopefully, we get JC or me. Maybe even we start rolling more with Benson. Start giving Benson some more reps. Or design runs by Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray did account for half of our rushing yards last week. Um, and then hopefully whatever pass attack that Drew Petzing is somehow keeping under his mattress that he doesn't want to break out yet. This would be a good time. Let's utilize Marv. Let's utilize some of our pass catchers. Even Michael Wilson had a couple nice grabs this last game. Elijah Higgins, he's still a solid tight end that can catch. And then I think we might be getting Tip Ryman back. He's probably going to be beneficial to this run game. So we'll see how Sunday gets going. But I do, now that I know the severity of the injuries with our corners, I do feel more optimistic than I did not knowing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think it all starts with this. This will be a good game for the offense. Don't know what they're going to wrinkle into the offense with the first division opponent. Like you had mentioned, maybe they did hold some stuff back, but I think they got to get going on the offensive line. Not just James Conner, but it starts up front, and they have played pretty shaky.
Yep, and then that's what is that's what kind of sucks too about this is that our offensive line, especially the right side of the line, hasn't played it particularly well. So we'll see. We got a comment for you.
Oh, Trev, what up, Trev?
I'm like, I'll let you read that one.
That's my guy.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you, thank you for the support, brother. We will see you in Dallas here in a couple of weeks.
yeah. And then on the defense side of the ball, pass rush has to step up. If there's ever a time for Darius Robinson to make his welcome to the league entrance, it's going to be this game. But we'll see. But I wrote down in my notes here, my half sheet of paper. I said good teams with injuries still find a way to win football games. So you face a little adversity, you got to scheme around that. So I don't want to use the injuries excuse on both, not just us, but for San Francisco as a way of they won because of injuries or they lost because of injuries. Um, I think that we will come away with a win Sunday.
Yeah, and there are no easy wins in the NFL. The defense get paid too, the old additive. But when you're back in December, at the end of December, and you're looking at the schedule, and you're looking at these games, no one's going to go back and be like, oh well, yeah, but everybody was hurt. It's like, no, at the beginning of the season, they won the game, and we'll go back and there won't be an asterisk next to this game as because everybody was hurt. So you got to take care of business. You got to keep stacking wins because the back half of the schedule is tough. And so you get a little blessing here because they are banged up and they're not 100% healthy. You get to just stack wins. So when it does come to the tough part or you have a hiccup against the team you're supposed to beat, you can kind of have one in the bag.
Yeah, and I mentioned it in our group chat earlier. You just got to keep trying to stack wins and press on through the adversity. And once it comes down to the end of the season, when you're making your playoff push, your campaign, you might be getting healthy at the right time. You might be getting LJ back. You might be getting Garrett back, and any other, knock on wood, any other player that goes down along the way. Um, but do you have like a score prediction that you want to say?
Oh, I feel like we always play pretty good in San Francisco. So maybe they get the run game going. Maybe they're able to keep Christian McCaffrey to human numbers, not superhuman numbers. And I think they're going to win. It'll be another close game. I don't think the offense is going to fire on all cylinders, but I'll say they end up winning this game 21-17.
Okay, I'm gonna say 24-20. We win.
Okay, there we go.
But that's everything that I have. Do you have anything else to add before we get out of here?
No, I don't. I want to thank everybody, myself here, for tuning in. A lot of the friends, a lot of the supporters that we have are super huge, and I appreciate everyone taking some time just to tune in or have it on in the background while you do chores. I really appreciate it.
Yep. As always, we appreciate it. And then just thanks again, Soul Pancakes. Great show, Marcos. I'm like, it's weird saying your screen name, but I know you as Marcos. But it says great show, guys. And I know you and Blake were just wrapping up, right before we went on. So I want to say thank you to everybody that there was a lot of good content creators that put out stuff today. So if you're listening back to back to back, we appreciate that. I try to keep it short so that way you're not sitting through the same old, same old. But I appreciate you all, and we will see you next week.
Later.